group chat. I am Justin Verrier, and joining me back for another triumphant Indiana Pacers win, Rob Mahoney, Big Waz. Rob, what are we calling these guys? The Pacemakers? The cardiac Pacers? I feel like we need a name now.
We got a lot to go through on that front, Justin. We asked the group chat listeners for their recommendations for Pacers nicknames. Let me tell you, they delivered. My phone has never blown up so much as registering with every email notification. So we're going to get into it. I think we have plenty of time to sing the Pacers praises on this pod. But I just got to say, for us, for the three of us and all that we've been through as Corn Boys together, we still didn't give the Pacers enough credit. We still haven't lavished them with enough praise. The Indiana Pacers are 2 wins away from the NBA title. How about that?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you felt this, but after that game 2, when the Thunder won, there seemed to be a resetting where everyone's like, oh, Thunder in 5. We're going to see what we all expected. But clearly not, because the Pacers just ripped hard out in this game.
That.
Okay.
I didn't feel that at all. The Thunder in game 2, they looked like a team with their actual backs against the wall, and they played hard. They killed it, all of that, in front of their home crowd. But the Pacers have been an incredible home team the entire playoffs. Like, the idea that game 3 was going to happen and the Thunder were going to just come in and roll them, I don't, like, we got to get over it. This is a very good to great team. They're not going to get rolled by anybody. They're too good for that. And so, no, I mean, I can understand why people, they come in with their priors, heavy favorite on the Thunder side. Yeah. And so they come back with game 2 and have a authoritative win. I understand why people, just revert back to their priors. But, like, for me, this team has been incredible in Indy the entire playoffs. And, basically outside of game 1, they've been a game 3 in Indy sort of team. Like, they're even used to the rhythms now of a series swinging back to Indianapolis. And so, yeah, I thought they would be tough to kill again.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. On the basketball court, the best players know when to pass. And off the court, you still need teammates who are there when it counts. That's where State Farm comes in. With agents and online tools to help you find the coverage you need, you can focus on what really matters, whether that's hitting game winners or just getting through the day. State Farm, with the assist. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability and eligibility vary by state. I think part of it was just like the regular season. We spent so much time coming to terms with the fact that OKC was so much better than practically everyone, and that the Pacers certainly in the mix. Obviously, we talked a lot about their second half, but yeah, I think a lot of us were just kind of like reverting back to what we previously had as our bias going into these series. But I also think like the Pacers, Rob, also showed why they keep doing this when at the end of this game in particular, it seemed like for the last, 6 minutes, whatever it was, they made practically every play, every hustle play, every sharp, precise play, while the Thunder just ran out of gas and just didn't seem like they had that extra oomph they needed.
I think that last part of it is the key part. Like, it felt like the Pacers won the war of attrition in a lot of ways, where not only all of those critical, like, must-have 50-50 ball plays, the Thunder looked exhausted. They looked flat-footed. They looked like they lost track of all the little things. Like, how many times did we see a Pacer run in for an offensive rebound basically untouched, an Obi Toppin two-handed dunk put back? Like, that's unacceptable in an NBA Finals game. And yet an incredible possession, an incredible sequence of events for Indiana. And they had those kinds of plays across the board. And I think that stuff starts with Indiana picking up Shea over the course of this entire game, wearing him down gradually over the course of it, targeting him defensively in a way that I thought was more concerted than we've seen in these finals to this point. And you can see the downstream effects of all of that. Now J-Dub has to do more. Now Chet has to do more. Now Alex Caruso's handling the ball more. Now we're stretching out guys' minutes and consolidating the rotation, and everyone's having to do a little bit more. And it seemed like by the end, nobody really had enough to do, like to manage that kind of energy level. Was.
That's the impression that I got. One Shea possession stands out to me. It's the one where he comes out, he gets the high screen, and they basically hedge on him. And as the one Pacer defender is recovering back to, I think it's Caruso he's recovering back to, Shea sort of pirouettes, turns around, doesn't know what to do. He's right at the free throw line extended, which is his spot, and he just walks. He just turns around and walks, looks confused. And in the fourth quarter, their offense bogged down. That's what I remember most from that fourth quarter. It wasn't even a lot of isolation, by the way. They were setting screens up top and trying to get some movement going. It's just that Indy just covered it beautifully. And I think some of the stuff where you're setting a screen with Caruso, who, although he's made a nice amount of shots, he's not a threat to dribble drive. He's not a threat to set his own, to run his own pick and roll. He's just not a threat. So to get his defender in the mix on Shea or on J-Dub in these fourth quarter possessions where now these guys have to operate where they're already, attracting extra help because the screener just brought his man over. I thought that stuff was tough. And I think playing the Pacers does wear on teams, both mentally and physically. I think there's something to having to remind yourself every single time to get all the way back every single time. Having to remind yourself about the constant actions and movements. And is this guy going to drive it? Is he going to shoot it? Is not the unpredictability of it. You don't get to rest your mind when you're playing against the Pacers. And I think by the time the fourth quarter came around, I think OKC was just over it. They're like, Jesus Christ, I'm sick of this.
Yeah. Well, it did seem like, Rob, that the Pacers made more of a concerted effort. And even Haliburton kind of nodded to the fact that they were going to take Shea out of this pretty much, or at the very least going to add additional attention to him. He had 6 turnovers in this game. Turnovers were a big deal overall. I think 6 was the most for him in a postseason game. Do you think a lot of it was that? I guess 3 things are happening here. One, the added addition to Shea and the trickle-down effect from that. It seemed like the Thunder also tightened their rotation, which I was trying to remember the last time they went 8, even in a half, which is what they went to. And it did feel like they didn't have the extra oomph. Or is this more Pacers, like when you get into a game in the fourth quarter that's close, this is where they break out the daggers and you better fucking just run for cover?
Yeah, I think probably the first and the third primarily. I think anytime you can put that much wear and tear on Shea over the course of a game, just force him to do so much heavy lifting just to get the ball up court, to disrupt the flow of their offense. We've seen time and again throughout these playoffs, if you can just disrupt them at the point of attack with Shea, you force the Thunder to get into some really deep possessions really quickly. And I say that in a game that was honestly one of J-Dub's best games throughout this postseason. I thought he was sensational for the bulk of this game. And just down the stretch, their whole offense fell apart. It wasn't just him. It wasn't just Shea. It was kind of everything.
Sensational for J-Dub? Because I noticed him pop after halftime where he was concertedly being aggressive about it. He had those 2 big buckets. He guarded Siakam up in the perimeter. So clearly something got to him that he needed to lock in. But I think with J-Dub, he does come in fits and starts. And my criticism has always been where's the complete effort where if Shea is going to get all that additional attention, he just takes the game by his throat and has a 30-point performance.
Right. I think that's where the close to this game was a little disappointing. Because if I had to pinpoint what I was most impressed from J-Dub in this game, the games where he hits a bunch of spot-up jumpers, good. That's always a good shot. Everyone needs that in their offense. But the games where he's hitting tough contested shots, especially mid-rangers, runners, the star-level shots, those are the games that impressed me most. And I thought we saw flashes of that throughout this game, right? Little moments where maybe the offense was on the skids a little bit, and all of a sudden J-Dub's coming up with a huge bucket. He's saving possessions. He's bailing the Thunder out of some stuff that's going sideways. And then by the end of this game, they just had no one bailing them out, right? Shea is having the kinds of possessions that Waz outlined. J-Dub is a little bit invisible. Chet had a nice opening stretch, especially in transition, but sort of faded offensively over the course of this game. All of a sudden, there's just no flotation devices left for the Thunder, which is such a weird place to see a team. We're just used to them being able to weather any kind of storm, any kind of huge run. And the Pacers, they've been for basically every opponent to this point, have just been overwhelming in games like this.
I thought this was a really good J-Dub game. It wasn't perfect, obviously, but I thought some of the stuff he did is going to, this is the stuff that needs to happen if they're going to win this series. In the second quarter, Indiana kind of stretched it to 7. And it looked like, okay, some momentum was happening. And J-Dub, I think, got to the line 6 times that quarter. And it was just getting to the rack, drawing contact, the stuff that you expect from big-time players. All right, this is how I calm the team down. I'm not okay, making some dribble step back. It's no, I'm getting the rock in and around the basket, or I'm going towards the basket on the dribble, and I'm getting to the line. I thought that did calm and settle them, and that's a thing that nobody else on that team can do outside of Shea. right? Like have possessions where it's not the most crisp, perfect ball movement. It's just, all right, I'm just better than the guy in front of me on my hip right now. And I'm creating. I thought this was a really good J-Dub game. I just thought the Thunder, like you guys said, the offense in the fourth was just stuck in the mud, man. And I think you got to give credit to the Pacers because they were executing defense at an insanely high level. Again, we know what Neesmith and Nembhard do on a day-to-day. Miles Turner in the fourth quarter, he was goddamn Bill Russell. Haliburton, yo, I'm sorry. Haliburton's defense, man, deserves some level of respect. And I know we're probably going to get into it too, because that was the chatter that I was most paying attention to coming out of game two. It's like, see? 3 points. See? He barely took any shots. Oh, he's not a superstar, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, guys, relax, bro. Like, he's been doing this entire playoffs. Like, guys, chill. And I thought his aggression, the way he was just like hunting for his shots, and then in the fourth where I think things really got broken wide open for Indy's offense, the Thunder did not know what to do on that Miles Turner pick and roll. It was just all bad options. Like, Hallie had the floater whenever he wanted to. If they went under, he had to pull up three. Like, that pocket pass was there working for Miles to catch at the foul line. That's when I was like, OKC's in trouble this quarter because they can't do anything with that pick and roll. And yeah, Hallie deserved his flowers for that.
Yeah, I think the issue was not only were there, 2 to 3 days in between finals games, and so we had a whole lot of time in order to parse through whatever happened. And then the natural inclination is just like star player had X many points.
Yes.
He was either great or he didn't play well enough. If you watch the Pacers thus far, this is just kind of how he plays. And the Pacers' success largely derives from him. But I guess this was the bounce back game that everyone could probably agree was pretty awesome. 22, 11, and 9 overall, just like a complete performance on both ends, as Woz mentioned. Rob, I guess we could say that Tyrese Haliburton is not having a down year officially at this point.
Oh, wow. That's very big of you to finally come to those terms, Justin.
I'm saying it's big of Trenton Watford. We need to tell our boy on the net he's not having a down year.
This is true. Look, I hate for Trenton Watford to take L's on this podcast, but this one he's got to take all the way, like 100%. The overrated chatter has been out there. Woz, you're right. Like is he aggressive enough chatter has been out there the last couple of days in particular. I think this game from Haliburton is a great case study in what we're talking about when we talk about stars being aggressive. Because yes, some of it is Tyrese Haliburton, a pass first player, needs to turn down the part of his brain that wants to pass a little bit. Like he needs to turn that part down. Mm-hmm. He needs to be willing to settle for some shots that are not the best shot, but in these circumstances against this defense are a good enough shot, are a great enough shot in some instances. I also thought his teammates did him a great service, and Rick Carlisle did him a great service by starting a bunch of possessions in other places. How many possessions start with Andrew Nembhard, start with Pascal Siakam, with the intent of rerouting to Tyrese Haliburton with momentum, with an advantage, with a switch he can attack? Like the whole point of attacking a team like the Thunder is if they're going to switch this much, guess what, Shea? If you switch onto Pascal Siakam, you're going to get posted. Isaiah Hartenstein, if you switch onto Tyrese Haliburton, we're going to then run you through a bunch of action in ways that you're not used to doing. And I thought Haliburton took incredible advantage of those situations as much as anything. And like that's tactical, right? Like that's a team level decision on how to help him be a more aggressive player. And it really paid off, not just for him, but then in him getting to the lane and spraying out to everyone else and playing Indiana Pacers basketball.
Yeah, I piloted this take on Rob the other day, so he's going to have to pretend like he hasn't heard me go through this at all. But I want to get your thoughts first and foremost. It seems like part of why we can't accept Haliburton for being a true blue superstar, in large part, is because the two things he does well are the two things over the past decade or so we've kind of been pushing against. Like he's a pass-first point guard who gets guys involved, first and foremost, isn't really much of a scorer. Well, like, over the past decade, our scorers are our point guards, to the point that we don't even call them point guards anymore. They're ball handlers, right? They're offensive engines. It's Luka, it's Harden. It's also like the clutch stuff.
It's Shea.
Yeah.
It's Shea. Yeah. Perfect example. It's also like the clutch stuff, though, which like we know is like wonky, and we have all of our nerdy friends and even us being like, you clutch, it's a small sample, but it does feel like he has, if there is a clutch gene, because it's not just him, it's his team. And so it's almost like it's like he is a throwback in a certain sense, a lot of the things that we used to talk about and used to value in stars, Steve Nash or even Kobe with the clutch. But we've almost worked against it for a decade that we're taking a while to catch up to it again.
So Hallie to me is in the Steve Nash and Chris Paul before the knee completely gave out on him. People don't remember this version of Chris Paul because it was so long ago. But like he would be the consummate point guard, so to speak, for 3 quarters. And then when the clutch would come, this dude would just start scoring every single possession. That was like his entire MO. Same with Nash. Like he just wouldn't be aggressive hunting his shot for the entire game. And then when it was the 4th quarter, he would just be like, yo, soon as I come off this Amari screen, I'm firing. Chris Paul, same, like I think Haliburton has a lot of that in him where he just feels like until it's like this last minute, he's not going to spend the game just aggressively looking for his own shot. And even when he's not looking for his own shot, just staying on the ball.
Yeah.
And I think, again, like what people just got to respect is that the unpredictability of the way the Pacers play is an asset. The fact that it's not the same action for 4 freaking quarters, like the Luka Doncic Mavs, for instance, right? Or Trae Young back in the days. Like the same exact offense for 4 quarters. You don't let the defense look at it for 4 quarters. And so, again, it puts them in a bad position in a clutch where they're like, who exactly is about to take over? Like when this guy catches it on the wing, when Nembhard catches it on the wing, he's a legitimate threat to put his head down and go all the way to the basket on his own. Or to pull up. Who knows? Like, you don't know. That is so stressful for a defense, man. Whereas, like, again, Caruso touches the ball in the 4th quarter. I know he's not putting his head down and taking it to the rack. He's just not. Same with Lou Dort. Lou Dort is not going to dribble into a crowd in the 4th quarter.
Yes.
Like they're just way more predictable than the Pacers are. And I think Haliburton is why. Like the nature of his game allows for these guys to step up in big moments because they're doing it all game long.
It's so true. I think the finishing piece of that is some of what you're outlining, Woz, in terms of that Steve Nash, Chris Paul level. Haliburton absolutely has the elements of those guys' games. I don't think he has the full Steve Nash against Dallas in the playoffs go for 48 game. Like, we're going to let anyone else, like, we're going to dare you to beat us and lock down every other option. I don't know that he has that gear in him yet. And frankly, the Thunder aren't challenging him in that particular way. But if you're going to keep a defense like OKC's off balance, being aggressive on offense is a huge part of that. And you could see it over the course of this game in terms of unlocking, I would say, the pocket pass in particular. Haliburton's timing on the pocket pass is so precise and so great, especially if you buy even for a second that he's going to pull up for the floater. And you could see the Thunder getting kind of pulled into that possibility that, okay, like he's coming out looking for this drive in a way that we're not used to. We're gonna stay with him for a half beat longer. And then now all of a sudden that Miles Turner pass is right there for the taking every time because you put that seed of doubt in the Thunder's mind in the 1st and 2nd, really I would say in the 2nd quarter. Like that's when everything for Indy snapped into place. We haven't even talked about the bench yet. My brain is screaming Ben Mathurin at the top of its brain lungs.
And TJ McConnell.
Whether this was the TJ McConnell game or the Ben Mathurin game, it was like an all-out brawl to see which one would survive.
Yeah, so it's good to have a point guard. It's good to also have a backup point guard, especially one who gets 5 steals in an NBA game. There was like an 11-4 run they had where I think virtually all of that came via TJ, whether it was with the pass or the few scoring opportunities he had in this game. I mean, as someone who won the inaugural white NBA players American draft, you have to be proud of this one.
I'm telling you, I found religion on TJ McConnell last playoffs, where I was like, come on, he's not going to do this against playoff defenses. And he just did it against every single playoff defense he came up against. And now it's the Thunder, who are the best playoff defenses. Playoff defenses were invented.
Yeah.
And he's doing it against them again. And a lot of it is just, he's constantly getting into the teeth of the defense with the dribble. And like, you shouldn't feel like TJ McConnell is going to be some major threat while he's in the lane with a live dribble. But like, it's natural to be like, hold on, this guy's 3 feet from the basket right now with a live dribble. Like, this is a problem. And the defenses is reacting. Like, at one point, I forget, he drove to the lane and the defense lost somebody on a backdoor cut and he just dumped it off to him. I'm just like, TJ McConnell is creating wide open dunks off of his dribble penetration. That's insane.
It was nuts. And you're right. We're all finding faith together. I think that, look, there's been a lot of reasons to doubt TJ McConnell over the years for exactly the reasons you described. He is a classic, run around a lot, sometimes accomplish a lot, sometimes accomplish little. Or some matchups would be very tough for him, frankly, in a way that the first two games of the series were. But here we are, united in our faith, father, son, and TJ McConnell. Has there been a more coach's son game in NBA history than
showed his dad,
3 inbounds passes
90 million
in the
times.
If you were listening to the freaking ESPN broadcast, bro, God bless Doris Burke, but she literally did the he's 6'2" and white. It's a miracle that he's in the NBA. She said he's only 6'2". I'm like, yo, bro, she's really doing it. The coach's son and the moxie and the craft, and he's pesky. And I'm just like, yo, calling an NBA player pesky is hilarious, bro.
Well, and we wonder why Tyrese Haliburton's dad had the gumption to go up to Giannis after a game one time. It's because whenever these parents are in the crowd, they show him 90 fucking times and they become pseudo-celebrities all of a sudden. And they're probably feeling themselves enough to where they think if they have enough liquid courage, they can go up to Giannis and be like, what the fuck is up now?
Yeah.
Don't do that, Mr. McConnell, okay? We don't need that.
Yeah, TJ McConnell's dad he got a lot of run, but listen, TJ was killing.
He deserved it.
In the first half and the second half. He had 2 great, amazing stints in this game. And obviously Ben Mathurin, Haitian sensation, he was just magnificent. It was crazy what he was doing out there.
Yeah, so I think the big picture brain in me wants to be like, oh, well, all of this depth, it just works in concert. And so that a team like the Pacers that likes to push the pace is going to have the healthy bodies, the live bodies in order to just keep hitting you with waves, right? The strategy of it all. I am guilty of looking to those sorts of things as much as possible. But then it's just good when guys just play out of their fucking gourds coming off the bench. TJ was one of them. Ben was another one of them. Rob, did you think that when Ben Mathurin came into the league and he was saying how much LeBron needed to prove that he could play at Ben Mathurin's level, that this was in store for him?
I didn't think it was going to quite be this, but I'm glad to be proven wrong on this and many other things. 27 points on 12 shots for Ben Mathurin. Are you fucking kidding me? It's unreal
22 minutes.
To have.
Yeah,
in 22 minutes, and here's where I am with Ben Mathurin, because his journey through the Pacers system has been fascinating. Obviously, he was injured during last year's playoff run, so he didn't have quite the same experience as some of these other guys did. Stylistically, has been a bit on a slightly different beat, I would say, than many of the Pacers regulars and mainstays, and for that reason, I just don't think Rick Carlisle trusts him in the way that he trusts Andrew Nembhard or Aaron Nesmith, or even sometimes Ben Shepherd, for that matter. Which makes me feel like Ben Mathurin, to me, this version of Ben Mathurin is the more evolved Jonathan Kuminga. This is the contrast of styles. This is and I say that it's not that Jonathan Kuminga is a wildly more talented player or Ben Mathurin is a wildly more talented player, but you can tell that one of these two guys is a little bit more in tune with what his team is doing. Not fully in tune, because if he were fully in tune, he would be another plug and replace Indiana Pacer. But the reason Ben Mathurin is valuable to Indiana is because he is not exactly like everyone else, because he's going to come into this game, because he's going to come into other games and get to the line a ton on one night, be a commanding on-ball force on another night, be a little bit out of the loop sometimes, but can take over a game in a way that a Ben Shepherd never will be able to. And that is worth its weight in gold in the NBA Finals, clearly. You cannot replicate that kind of value coming off the bench.
Yeah, what Rob is talking about is Indy's frenetic, crazy, hyper movement, hyper fast pace of play, style of play doesn't fit with how Ben Mathurin has traditionally been, which is just a traditional shooting guard, methodical.
He's a six-man. He's a classic six-man bench scorer. Yes.
Yes, break you off the dribble, call some pick and rolls every now and again, but I'm looking to score every time. I think today or tonight, he was like, you know what? I want to catch the ball going downhill, but I don't have to do it starting from 30 feet. I can do that on a dribble handoff. I can keep the defender in jail coming off of a pin down as the defender is behind my back. It's like all of these positions you fight to get into off of the dribble, he's getting into it off of the ball. And that's obviously more in tune with what Indiana wants to do. And the guy is very skilled, very athletic. Like, he's a good, talented player. And it just shown tonight, man. Like, some of these and ones, then he's getting to the lane and finishing with the left and making spot up threes. I'm like, this is insane what this guy is doing.
I think the point we're kind of circling here is that, yes, the Pacers are unpredictable because of their playing style. A lot of the freelancing they're able to do is because of the pace and Haliburton and all this other stuff. But they also slot into more traditional roles than what the Thunder have, which is kind of like the prime example of a modern team where, yes, Shea does a lot of it, but then you have a lot of two-way guys around it, a lot of guys who are a little bit more programmatic in how they'll go about their offense, to the point, Rob, where I credit Isaiah Blakely, our producer, who talked about this before we got on here. It's like, at a certain point, if Shea is getting mauled, like, who's around to dribble? Like, how many actually guys do they have like Mathurin? Isaiah Joe is a guy that I brought up as a potential replacement for that. He only played 4 minutes in this game, hit both of his shots, but like, he gives away so much that they tend to shorten the rotation with guys that are centers like Hartenstein or Caruso and like their wing defenders. And so it's like, where is that coming from if it's not J-Dub and when Chet is really in the flow of things?
But can I ask y'all, is Isaiah Joe getting killed on defense that badly?
No.
It doesn't feel like it.
I thought he was fine.
Like, his ability to like keep the defense pretty stretched, man, and worried. Talk about that mental attrition. He's one of those guys. Like, look, Lou Dort made some threes today. Caruso made one in the corner. The Pacers, like, it sucks when that happens as a defense, when it's like, this is kind of what we wanted and it went against us. Like, that's a bad feeling. But that's not the same as Isaiah Joe making 2 straight 3-pointers in terms of the panic. So I'm just asking y'all, like, is he that bad on defense?
I actually think he's been okay on defense for most of the season. Like, not every night, but by and large has been fine. And in this game, I didn't really have a problem with how he was playing. I didn't understand why he got yanked out of the rotation for the second half, other than clearly the Thunder were trying to buckle down and were trying to find minutes for their best guys, right? Like, it's one thing if you're trading off Isaiah Joe minutes for Lou Dort minutes. It's another thing if you're doing it so you can stretch out Shea a little bit further. And I can understand the logic of that in a game like this. I don't know that it paid off in the way that the Thunder needed it to.
Yeah, the Shea thing is the big part of it, because he did get 42 minutes in this game. They had the extra rest, and so maybe that was just baked into their plan. And as we've seen with the Thunder, like, when they have a plan, they tend to stick with it, even though they have optionality within the roster to turn to certain guys more than the others. So we'll see. The other thing I wanted to bring up to you guys just briefly is that the Thunder definitely racked up some turnovers. They ended up with 19. Indy had 14, but I feel like the disparity was bigger during the course of the game before it got out of hand toward the end there. So I forgot who had this stat, but I saw it kick around Twitter. Apologies. I usually try to write down who comes up with it, but 72% of the playoff games this postseason have been dictated by turnovers, which might be the case historically. Like, the team that's executing better tends to win. On the other hand, it does feel more important in this series in particular. We talked about it coming into it. Obviously, both teams take care of the ball. The Thunder get so much out of creating turnovers themselves. Do you think there's anything more to it, Rob? Do you think that, like, the fact that, like, is offense just getting to a point where it's so crisp that the mistakes are just popping a little bit more?
Honestly, I would guess this is something that kind of comes out in the noise a little bit. I think it's probably a little bit more randomness. I would guess it's probably, as you said, in line with historical data. I also think it's weighted heavily by the fact that we are now in the NBA Finals, and the two teams here are the Thunder and the Pacers.
Yes. I was just going to say that.
Like, these are two teams, like, their styles are predicated on dominating the turnover margin, and therefore, league, like, overall for the playoffs is going to look that way. But I think if the Nuggets had gone on a deep playoff run, maybe it would look a little bit differently. If the Knicks had gone on a longer run, maybe it would look a little bit differently. I think some of that's just like, that's how these two teams play. They are incredibly successful with it for their personnel. I don't know that it means that anyone would be, or it has to be the dominant style in the league right now.
So in the second quarter, I had it down. I was like, oh, the Pacers are finally getting their run game going, which feels like the first time all series that had happened. And we're talking about 2 quarters into the third game of the series. It's almost like, if you're like watching the Chiefs and they finally hit a 40-yard pass, it's like, oh, okay, they're getting big plays now. And so Yeah, I think the turnovers helped unlock that. But again, the Pacers were doing it off of makes and man, it was this one play where Toppin just got behind the freaking defense somehow. He caught it maybe 5 feet into half court, got behind the defense. Everybody reacted. I think he ended up dumping it off for a basket or whatever. But I'm just like, man, this is the things that I've been watching these guys do all playoffs long, that it's finally happening against the Thunder, who, God bless them, for the first 2 games did a good job of keeping these guys in the half court. Today was the first time it felt like the Pacers was like, all right, we're getting into our type of game again.
I mean, one big part of that too, as far as like what makes the Pacers so successful in crunch time, what makes like the turnover margin such a dominant stat in this year's playoffs. Like when you get into the ends of these games in particular, Indy just does not turn the ball over. And so then it's not a mystery why they're able to go on these game-changing runs. They're getting shots on goal every single time. And they may be successful. They're a great shot-making team. Maybe sometimes they'll miss, but like they're going to turn you over enough times to get out and run and make something of it. They're going to turn you over often enough, even if you are the Oklahoma City Thunder, that they're going to stay in games. They're going to come back in games. They're going to turn a series. They're going to make it 2-1. Like this is just who these guys are at this point.
Yeah, it's crazy because as miraculous as it is and as magical as this run has been, it's kind of all repeatable. And like the way that they've come back has looked like the other games that we've seen. And at this point, it's a miraculous formula that they just have down that they could just turn to. This one, I guess they didn't even need the miraculous part because they kind of had this game in hand for most of it, or at the very least had their hand on the throttle for a lot of this. And so credit to them, man. They definitely punched the Thunder in the mouth in the game that they needed to.
Dude, it's not even the point of like miraculous is hilarious at this point again, because at one point I thought one of the shots that kind of blew this thing open was Nesmith in the corner where he does the catch where he barely puts his arm freaking down. He immediately gets up and launches it and just splashes it. I'm just like, bro, this is what? Like, this is happening again?
The cross court from Haliburton
is not a miracle.
Yeah, the cross court to Haliburton to Nesmith in the shooting pocket, gets it up within like a split second. I was like, game over. They're so in rhythm. Like, there's no coming back from that.
Well, let's take this opportunity, as you alluded to, Justin, to christen these Pacers properly. We've consulted the authorities, which are the group chat listeners. I gotta say, the variety of names, some of which were truly unhinged, some of which required paragraphs of explanation. I'm here to tell you that's a little bit too intricate for the exercise of what we're trying to accomplish here, which is we need something snappy. We need a We Believe Warriors. We need maybe at most, in terms of difficulty, a 7 seconds or less Suns. I would like to throw out to you first, just for fun, the variety of pop culture-oriented names that people threw at us to describe the Indiana Pacers, because we do work here at theringer.com. The Survivors. How do we feel about the Survivors? Apostrophe C.
Creative, but you really have to emphasize the Sir in order to get there. Good thinking.
You really do. I think it's maybe a step too far. There were some that are like people trying to riff on Goonies and the never say die thing of Goonies. I think that's too much. Many people suggested nicknames oriented to the Leonardo DiCaprio movie The Revenant in light of our conversation about being post-death. I think that might be too much. And I say that as someone who enjoys that movie and Leo's career very much. Cornyceps? What do you think, Justin? How do you feel about cornyceps?
I fucking love it, but that's even too weird for me.
It's too weird. We got several the P1000s after Terminator 2. I see the vision, but again, I think it's a little too much. The Payback Pacers. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting into the right range. But ultimately, I think we've got to step outside of that realm. Or if we're going to do pop culture, I think Children of the Corn is still the one to beat as far as that goes. Otherwise,
I think Children of the Corn is my favorite.
I think Children of the Corn's got some legs. Many recommendations for the Possum Pacers, which I do think has some legs, but maybe
they
it's
play
a disservice.
Possum and but Possum is such a
That's
disgusting
the argument. That's the
animal.
There's a negative connotation to possums.
This is beautiful basketball. Too beautiful for a possum laying on the road.
Possums are too ugly.
It's eroded.
I just find myself coming back to Pacemakers, though. I think Pacemakers might be not ideal, but perfectly evocative for what we need from this Pacers team. Can we do any better than Pacemakers?
Pacemakers and Children of the Corn are my two favorites, to be honest.
Do we need a poll?
Survivors is
Shout out to the Survivors. Yeah, maybe we'll throw up a poll. We'll throw up a poll on social
New
or
York
something.
Post back page for sure.
It's true.
But like, yeah, too good.
So Pacemakers. I kind of like it.
I think so.
Pacemakers.
Okay. That's the one I would go for. But yeah, maybe we
Team's
could
got
put
a lot
poll.
of heart, Justin.
You're goddamn right they do. In the heartland, they've got some heart. All right. Anything else from this game, or should we turn the page here
I
to
think we got
literal
it
headlines?
all. Chet
Okay.
Holmgren was really good in the first half, had
He
a
was.
nice
He was
third
awesome.
quarter. It was just like, I was like, man, when Chet becomes this guy on a regular basis, yeah, watch out, bro. That was exciting to watch.
One little throwaway thing that I think could have changed the game maybe a little bit. How was that not a flagrant foul on Aaron Nesmith down the stretch?
the dick punch?
I don't know. I think
No,
he
the
didn't
two-handed
know-
shoulder, like the horse collar
First of
almost.
all, this
Oh,
is
yeah,
my
right.
thing. He didn't know which side the ball was going to be on, so he went for both sides.
Sure, sure. I guess that's a play. I guess that's a justification.
That's a regular foul, man. Like,
All right.
Caruso landed on his 2 feet just fine. Like, it didn't cause him to have some bad, horrible landing. Like, bruh, play on, man.
I'm soft. I get it.
Is it too soon to have the conversation of whether or not this is the most surprising title of our lifetime? Do we need to save
It's
that,
too soon.
or
Well,
Too
we
soon.
just need to save content. So like, don't
Too
burn through all
soon.
of our good content now.
Too
I've
soon.
got like 2 days between games. I'm living out of a hotel, man. I've got so much fucking time. I have 20 segments if you really want them.
If you ask
Too
me
soon.
to outline my dream scenario, it's lock Justin Verrier in a room and make him dream up segments about the Indiana Pacers. So we're really living my best life.
So,
Right.
but what do you guys changed your minds about the series?
Oh, about who would win? Oh,
Yeah, it sounds like y'all are preparing for a title.
I don't know.
A title parade in
don't
that town.
I like how Waz has flipped this around where he's now Mr. Pacer.
No, I'm
And we're
not.
the ones having to
I'm the
defend
only one that
this.
thought this could go 6 or 7. I'm not
That's
Mr.
true.
Pacer. Yeah,
That's
like
true.
I'm not. I just literally didn't think the Thunder would roll them. That's it. Like,
Yeah.
I've been beaten into submission by the Pacers. I got too much respect for these guys.
It's true. I could definitely see it going 7 now, regardless of who wins. I would still lean toward the Thunder. They still have a ton of moves that I think that they can really turn to here. It's like, it's not like they're getting dominated. Just like it's a couple dial turns and just like keeping the game out of reach long enough so the Pacers can't do this, right? Like
Yeah.
game 2 is repeatable.
I
As
think
far
they
as I'm
got to. I think they got to stop being cute. How many shots did Shea take tonight? Like 19. Again, I repeat, that should be closer to 30, in my opinion.
See,
That's
this
my
time
opinion.
don't get me wrong. Shea, if you can get Shea more shots, you should do that. He's an amazing player. I thought he was working for it and trying to get to those shots. And Andrew Nembhard and Ben Shepherd and some spots, Aaron Nesmith are really the first two guys who were just all over him. And I thought they played phenomenal one-on-one defense in a way that made it hard for Shea to take 30.
I think you guys saw, and to Waz's point earlier, like when Chet clicks into place, this team hits another gear. And so what are the ways that we can really open things up for him? We saw some too big going down the stretch. I almost wondered if they had to go even smaller at the end of the game. It's just being able to optimize Chet seems like it's going to be the decisive thing of this entire series because he had like 6 free throws in that first quarter. I was like, is he the new foul merchant? Do we really need to reroute the narrative in order to get to him because he was getting the line on some kind of shitty shots? But it's just, he changes everything for them at this point. So he almost is the canary in the coal mine for this series.
There is a fascinating thing at play with the stars in this series. You know, we haven't talked about Pascal Siakam much. He, I thought, had a tremendous game too.
He's the one that balanced them in the first half, though. They came out
Completely.
shaky as hell.
Yes.
Shaky as hell. They call that first time out, and then Siakam and them they just finally like settled in.
Yes. And I think, look, who sets the floor for both of these teams? For OKC, I think Shea's excellence one-on-one and the defense make it like they never have bad, like terrible games. I think they're always going to be at a certain level of competence because of those two things. For the Pacers, I think Siakam sets the floor. Like he is the steady piece. And Haliburton clicking and his style and the momentum of the greater offense is what breaks the ceiling and lets them blow the top off the thing. For the Thunder, their floor is incredibly high. It lets them dominate in the regular season. It lets them beat a ton of playoff opponents. But you're right, Justin. Like, Chet is the kind of guy who raises their ceiling. A great J-Dub game is the thing that raises their ceiling. Like, they need those sorts of elements to be their best possible selves. And we're just not seeing them quite consistently enough to beat opponent as good as these Indiana Pacers.
Yeah, after that first quarter, I was pocketing a take about how Chet is the prime representation of the evolution of basketball. But we'll get to that next time when they actually have a good game when he plays an entire good game. So we'll turn now to the offseason, because as we've been going through these finals, feels like something's happening every day, to the point where today I feel like I got 30 news alerts about various coaches that just turned down the New York Knickerbockers, unfortunately. So I put together 3 headlines based off of the TikTok pieces, the feature stories that Ramona Shelburne could be writing when these events happen. I want you guys to tell me, 1, like, how likely is the scenario, and 2, how likely is the piece that falls. I do think we need to start first and foremost with those Knicks.
Wait. Hold on. Let's stop right there. What is the distinction between the 2 things we are rating?
You're just going to tell me if you like it or you don't. Like, we're going to talk about the move itself, and then you're going to tell me if you think the headline is funny. Yeah. Don't ask questions about my bits, because they fall apart incredibly quickly. I just think they're funny. I have no one to put them against, and then all of a sudden, yeah. So, Knicks were turned down. So they asked for permission, but were ultimately declined permission to interview. I have 5 head coaches in the NBA. I think all of these reports came today or over the past few days. Chris Finch, Ime Udoka, Jason Kidd, Quinn Snyder, Billy Donovan. It reminded me of like The Athletic when they first popped up, and like they were just hiring everybody from every newspaper.
Except this is the opposite.
Yeah, except they got turned down because unfortunately, the New York Post is not the place they want to go to. So the headline I have down here is "Accepting the Scallenge: Why Brian Scalabrini's street ball bullying proved he's built for New York." So they are turned down by so many people. They had to turn to Brian Scalabrine, and the lead to this piece was all about how he took it to George the Messiah in street ball. The Scallenge is what he used to call it, and that showed his tough mentality in order to take the job with the Knicks, turn them around, almost like Eddie Whoopi Goldberg style.
I need you to walk me through your process.
He's saying that the coaching search is going to get so desperate. They have to do something like get a Brian Scalabrine. I think the desperation is just going to be an assistant who you don't have to ask permission to talk to. Like, they're just going to have to hire some assistant that people respect and like and move on. And again, this is why I thought they should use like the New York might to go actually get somebody. Not be like permission to talk to your coach. What I'm Ime Udoka. I'm freaking, Chris Finch. I'm whoever. You gonna interview me if I'm good enough to take your Knick job? Like, no. Like, it doesn't, like, bro, you were supposed to go there and be like, yo, I want you really badly. And here's how we're going to get you out of freaking Minnesota or Houston. This isn't some, let's just let the Knicks talk to our guy for the, like, what? And if you're the guy, if you're the coach, like, why am I begging you to work at your fucking company when I got a good-ass job right now? You sound crazy. Interviewing me. Like, what are you talking about?
Woz, you're 100% right. Like, you don't ask Denzel to audition on tape. Like, that's not what this process is supposed to be.
For your little off-Broadway crappy-ass production. Are you shitting me?
That said, Woz, correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like a pod or two ago, you did go on an extended rant about how what Mark Dagnall's doing is cute, but you got to level up and go do it with the Knicks for it to mean anything. Am I misremembering your take?
No, yeah, for sure. But you know what I mean, though. It's just a monkey operation. Like, a few OKC people got mad about it, like, the Knicks aren't the big time or whatever. Like, it was a freaking joke. Get over it, Prairie people. Anyway.
Yeah. But you're right. They're doing it in public.
The point is not that the Knicks aren't big time. The point is, like, you just fired a coach. Okay? I didn't get fired by my job. My job likes me. It's like you just fired a coach. You the one that's in need of help right now. I have a job. I just got to the conference finals if I'm Finch. I just took, Houston to the playoffs and a nice seeding and all of that. Young team, mad trade assets. Look, like
you show up to your night pods
desperation
every time. Yeah, you have a job and we like your job.
Like the approach makes no sense. It's not a job interview. It's a get in touch with these people's agents, tell them like, yo, you see what Houston's paying you? We're going to pay the hell out of you, and you're going to get to be rich as hell in New York. You down with that number that we got for you? All right, cool. Now we go deal with your owner and how we pry you from the owner and grease the skids that way. Like, this is crazy what they're doing right now.
It reminds me a lot of when like a reporter asks a question in the press conference, which nobody, like a trained coach or athlete, isn't going to respond with honesty, right? To get the actual thing that's happening, it has to be behind closed doors because no one's going to admit that publicly. But for whatever reason, the Knicks went on this very public campaign of asking every coach. And obviously every team is going to take that as an opportunity to go run to Shams or whomever and be like, oh, we turned them down. Fuck them. We got our coaches back. And so if anything, it's so crazy. I thought that this was like a way to go get somebody else that they actually wanted, that this was a smokescreen to distract people from their actual
You're
move.
saying this is like a Bobby Hurley. Speaking of Woj.
Right. Yes. Danny Hurley. Yes.
Danny Hurley, excuse me. Sorry.
But you're right. I thought there was another move coming, and maybe it will, but it might just be the Knicks kind of just doing this off the seat of their pants.
Yeah, what do you know? Jim Dolan's not playing four-dimensional chess. I think you're right. You're onto something, though, Justin, with the reporting, like, daisy chaining that's happening here, where this is a too many guys problem. We don't usually think about coaching searches in those terms, but, like, you can do this with maybe 1 to 2 employed head coaches. You can't do it with 6. You just can't keep going around the circle trying to poach head coaches because teams will leak it because they don't have any vested interest in protecting you. So like, I just don't understand this other than through the lens of this is Knicks entitlement, which is very different from Lakers exceptionalism, which is at least on an institutional level kind of earned. This isn't even earned. This is just thinking that you deserve those coaches more than other teams do.
So here's an example of how this stuff happens generally. Freaking Tim Connolly, okay? He's in Denver with his cheap-ass ownership. A-Rod and them want to make a splash. They're like, bruh, we about to pay you like a motherfucker, okay? He had just signed his deal with Denver, knowing he was underpaid. And he was like, yo, guys, like, you give me the raise. Like, A-Rod and them want me really bad, but y'all give me the raise. It's cool. And the ownership was like, nah, bitch, you just signed this. Kick rocks. We had a handshake. Like, we just shook on this. I don't care what A-Rod and them said. So that's how you do it. You identify the guy. You offer him a shit ton of money. And then you like wait for their freaking employer to be like, no, I'm not. You know what? I'll pay you more. Or you know what? Yo, you disloyal as fuck. Go be a whore and take the money. Okay? Yeah. Like, that's how this game works. They don't go over there and say, permission to speak to Tim Connolly, please. No. Tell Tim Connolly you about to pay him and let his representatives do the rest.
I got to be honest. If you're a coach that hasn't been asked yet, do you start to feel bad? Like, if you're Chauncey Billups and you have not been asked for, like, permission to interview, like, you're like, what is wrong with me? What did I do?
Maybe that's the real move. Give every other coach an existential crisis in the process.
Crazy. This is crazy. Yeah. And you know, I've been seeing the stuff where people are like, oh, this feels like a Dolan move. This feels like Dolan, like, you know, he was off doing whatever the hell he was doing. Now the team is having the most success in 25 years. He's like, oh, I can taste it. Let me get back involved. And like, I'm like, I don't know. Like, Tibbs did have his shortcomings, blah, blah, blah. But like, it's now this process, how it's playing out, is feeling like a Dolan situation.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, ultimately, the Lakers won a title after, in air quotes, settling for Frank Vogel. If there's talent there, someone is going to be able to go in there and probably have an opportunity. It's just not going to win the headlines. Yes.
Yeah.
So I assume they will turn to an assistant at some point that they know and love, and he will take the job. And frankly,
so nuts.
Maybe he'll do just as good or better a job as Tibbs. We'll see. Next one I have up here is Kevin Durant. The chase is officially on because Shams had a report today suggesting that KD and Rich Kleinman, and specifically boardroom CEO Rich Kleinman, have met multiple times over the past week and are sifting through trade scenarios as if they haven't been doing that for weeks, for months. But at a certain point, they have obviously been weighing certain teams. The teams that, in air quotes, have expressed interest in Durant mainly feature Houston, San Antonio, Miami, Minnesota, New York. Obviously, other teams have probably inquired, but he names those teams probably for a reason. I have as the headline, the power of pop, chilaquiles with a side of salsa, and unfinished business, inside Kevin Durant's blockbuster trade to San Antonio.
We're getting to Mission Impossible levels of punctuation in these headlines.
It should have been a wine reference and not
that's true. That's true.
Well, in Texas, though, I wanted to throw
Pop
in that.
Is a wine guy, and you know these NBA players love wine.
True. That's true. I just wanted him to go, they actually met at a clandestine, Tex-Mex place that Katie used to go to back in his Austin
days. Some hard
days.
shell tacos.
And he's like,
with shredded cheese on it.
Katie ordered the chilaquile, but he told them to hold the salsa. And it reminded him of his youth when he also held off on doing it the easy way because he was going to do it the hard way. And that's how he became an all-NBA player.
Well, let me just say this. As someone who was once a 19-year-old as a freshman at the University of Texas, maybe not the same taste in Tex-Mex as pop. I don't think those circles quite overlap.
Okay. But I think the question is, do we think San Antonio is the move here? Because it seems like a lot of things are heading in that direction.
I'm still waiting for the sell on this. If you are the Spurs, Kevin Durant's a wonderful player, incredibly talented. I don't think there's a doubt that he would make them better. I just don't know if I'm San Antonio, if I'm making any moves that are on a 2-year runway right now. I am looking forward, perpetually onward and upward. I don't know why I would be on a Kevin Durant style path when my best player is Victor Wembanyama. And now we have a high pick in the draft. And there's so many ways you could move forward here other than banking on a 36, or is he 37-year-old veteran?
Going to be, yeah.
See, Spurs doing the Giannis thing makes sense because, like you said, Rob, it's that you could talk yourself being in a 4-year thing, right? Yeah. The KD thing is so short term, and to be that short term, and now Wembanyama, you're gonna turn into a KD offense, and De'Aaron Fox and Wembanyama need to be developing their chemistry as teammates, and look, I think they would be obviously a much better team for it.
Good,
I just don't know that developmentally this is the best thing for the team.
I think the sales pitch would be thus, and I can go either way on it. We're going to draft Dylan Harper number 2, and we're going to say we're looking at this more as the long view. Giannis might not come on the market. We're going to talk about that next. And even if he does, that's a 4 to 5 year window as opposed to a 10 to 12, which is Wemby might be that good for that long. We're thinking Duncan years with this guy. So we draft Harper, but we still want to push the button a little bit. We want to push forward. We want to compete now because we think Fox, Wemby, plus everything that we have, we could do something this year. Durant might be the middle tier move where if he accepts a role where he's more superstar emeritus, he actually lets the young guys trudge you through the regular season. I show up,
that would be smart.
50 games, and then in the playoffs, I'm going to pop and I'm going to take us to as far as we can get. And then he has more of a 3 to 4 year last couple years as opposed to doing everything like he did with Phoenix, where he was not only had to be the best player offensively, but the best player defensively. So it's twofold. If I could TLDR us, it's the Spurs having their cake and eating it too. And for Durant, it's I'm just going to let the young guys carry me through the back end of my career, kind of the way Chris Paul did with the Suns. He was the guy that stirred the drink. Well, I think that's also part of it. If they can get him for something a little bit more moderate, and if you have Dylan Harper, if you have Fox, presumably you can deal a guard. Is that Vassell? Is that Stephon Castle? Are you more willing to give up that plus some picks and you keep the guts of a competitive team?
Vassell is like untouchable in this deal. Like that seems insane to me.
I think it's more that Castle. Phoenix's incentives are not really anchored towards draft picks, particularly. Like they want to be competitive, and so you would need a third team if it's going to be a draft and or young player heavy.
Competitive?
I think so.
That's a bad idea.
Right, because they don't have their own draft picks. Would they rather be mediocre around Booker, which is where it seems like they're signaling their heads are at, or would they want to just steadily build with somebody else's future? I'll be honest, like Spurs picks of the future don't do much for me. Maybe they can get the Hawks picks that the Spurs still own, but again, Hawks look like they can be the 4th seed next year if things go right, just because of the way the East is looking. And so maybe they just don't have the package, Woz.
I don't know what the money is that you put together. And I mean, yeah, why can't the Suns be like, all right, Devin Booker, you're Mr. Sun, right? All right, well, you're going to bring up the 4th pick in the draft and Castle or Vassell, and we're rocking and rolling now. I could be talked into that if I'm Phoenix. I got 2 franchise cornerstones allegedly, and so just keep it pushing from there.
Yeah. I think from San Antonio's perspective, I'm bumping on 2 things, Justin, because I see the vision of what you're talking about as far as like the sort of mid-path that could make sense, especially if you can sell KD on the plan you described of like kind of saving himself during the regular season, let the young legs take over. I just don't think in the West, the young legs taking over is a guarantee of anything right now. Like the West is pretty competitive all the way through. They had some serious injury and health concerns this year, granted, that held them down a little bit, but it's not like the Spurs were just like sailing through this thing, even with Victor as good as he was, even after bringing Fox in and then, having his own injury issues along the way. So it's like, can you just like bank on this team to be a middle playoff seed? I don't think you can. And I would also feel a lot better about it if the player you were acquiring, whatever star you want to bring in, were a downhill player. Like I want someone who goes to the basket to play opposite Victor. And Kevin Durant doesn't do that anymore. And that's kind of an issue if you want to start pairing those guys together. It's like all of a sudden you have a lot of guys who like taking mid to long range jumpers. And that might not be what you want to like stage your entire offense around at this stage.
So the other options here. So if San Antonio isn't number 1 for you, do you guys like any of the other teams mentioned? Houston, Miami, Minnesota, New York? There's been some counter reporting to suggest they're not really in it. But Woz, do any of those appeal to you more than San Antonio?
Minnesota for sure. If I'm replacing Julius Randle with KD,
pretty good.
Sign me up.
Pretty good.
Like, that's an exciting prospect for sure. I just don't know what's in that for Phoenix. What are we doing? Like you're gonna have to pay the hell out of Julius Randle, and I don't think the next 3 years of Julius Randle are gonna have more output than KD. Do you guys?
But they have a shiny Rob Dillingham sitting right there.
Oh, Rob Dillingham is
Terrence Shannon
part of the package.
Terrence Shannon is probably already.
Didn't you see
27?
Terrence Shannon's playoff minutes? Come on.
Yeah, Minnesota's the one that I'm most intrigued by, but I just don't see how they why Phoenix is thirsty to do that.
I guess there would be enough mix of young players. Like, could you get Dillingham? Could you get Shannon? Is there a way to work in like a Naz Reid or a Nickeil Alexander-Walker?
Jaden McDaniels?
Right? I think that's where I would draw the line. You'd want Jaden in order to make that happen. See, I don't think you do that if you're Minnesota.
I'm not sure you do it if you're Minnesota. I'm not sure Phoenix is on the line if Jaden McDaniels isn't involved. Just like as you're putting the pieces together, it's like, what is the tipping point from the Phoenix Suns perspective? Jaden McDaniels is surely a tipping point. Anyone else who's going to be involved who could realistically be involved in a trade like that, I just don't really see the argument.
Jaden and Julius Randle? That's a lot. Your team is not going to be better. You're just not going to be a better team.
To me, I don't think you can get rid of Edwards, McDaniels, or probably even Rudy, because you need to keep the guts of what makes your team good now and just add KD to that if you can get it done like that. But usually when we're saying like you don't want to get rid of these guys, those are the guys that teams ask for.
Those are the guys teams want.
The only reason I might think a little that the reality might go a little differently from how we feel about it is it sure seemed like Minnesota was very interested in the Kevin Durant market at the trade deadline. Even at a time where it was like logistically almost impossible for them to get him, they wanted to demonstrate to Kevin Durant, look how eager we are to trade for you.
We
And
love you.
You know,
KD, we love you.
That's how you do it. You don't go trying to sign everybody's coach in order to make these overtures. You make little trade rumors behind the scenes.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's kind of complicating the market, probably for KD and everybody else, is it seems like Giannis is going to stay put in Milwaukee, or at least that's where we are on June 11th as we're recording this. We'll see in a couple days, couple weeks, because I don't know what he's returning to. We can get into that. But Giannis, not only the reports are out there that he's not on the market, the Bucks unwilling to deal him. Obviously, that makes sense for them. Why would they deal him if they didn't have to? He's also just tweeting up a storm now to the point where he tweeted out today, does anybody else miss Woj? And I have an answer for that. Fuck no. And so my headline here is philosophy according to Giannis, and this is a quote, I'm going to finish what I started. What do you think? Would you read it? Would you click?
I mean, I would click all of these for the record. Definitely, I would click the scallenge. Like I'm no time flat. Seeing that on my feed, I would click it. You know what? I go back and forth on whether I could actually see Giannis as a lifetime Buck. Clearly, he's demonstrated an incredible loyalty to that franchise. He's also kind of done what he's had to do as a star to force their hand in this situation or that, as any star should do in that situation. I think ultimately he will play for another team at some point. Whether that's now, clearly he's pumping the brakes on that. But I think he is destined for that at some point in his career. But clearly that may be another year down the line, or 3 years down the line. I honestly have no idea with that guy.
Yeah, I think he'll eventually go ring chase somewhere. But I think the KD career timeline is an instructive one. Just like, all right, force a trade, force a move. And what's so great about what happened in Brooklyn and Phoenix? You know, like what's so awesome about that? And so, yeah, I think if something that's super duper attractive presents itself, like I would imagine if there was like a Golden State opportunity that like actually made some kind of sense, I could see him being like, yeah, me and Steph, absolutely. But you know, what's out there right now maybe just doesn't feel that attractive in terms of place and players that he would be with.
Yeah. I think he should do whatever he wants. My question is, after he's decided to show up for training camp and he looks around at the team assembled, if he's going to have a little bit of uppers in remorse here. Because if you thought last year's Bucks looked bad, it's potentially going to be worse than that. So free agents, I have them down as potentially losing 191 starts if they don't return a lot of the guys that they have on the market available, which is Brook Lopez, Taurean Prince, Gary Trent Jr., Ryan Rollins. All of a sudden, Ryan Rollins being an undrafted, like a unrestricted free agent, looks like a potentially big loss if they lose him. And then
Big
Jericho
deal.
Sims. And then in player options, they have Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton. You assume he's going to pick that one up at $9.4 million. Kevin Porter Jr. But it's likely, I would say, not just possible, that they lose a lot of those guys and have to find a way to replace the team that we were already saying was barely good enough to be even on the floor with a guy of this caliber. Dame, of course, we didn't even mention, is when is he coming back? And if he comes back, mid-30s small guard with a devastating injury.
He's not coming back next season.
I wouldn't
expect.
So,
is he just going to go to Cancun midway through and get to the LeBron and chill like program here? Because if not, like it's going to get pretty frustrating for him next season.
See, I think he is going to show up to camp and do his part with whatever the Bucks look like. And he's going to get through about 6 weeks of the season and be like, what is this? What did I sign up for? Like once especially super high level professional athletes are confronted with the fact that their best is maybe not enough to elevate any kind of circumstance around them. And like, let's be honest about what this is. Even if they do bring some of those guys back, Justin, Brook Lopez is 37 years old and was just kind of like played out of halves of playoff games. Like he is not the answer. The team as constructed is not the answer. So then you have to create a new one whole cloth with Giannis' salary on the books, obviously, with Dame's salary on the books, obviously, or move on from him in a way that's not going to actually benefit the team, because trading Damian Lillard at this stage is not an additive trade for another team. So what are you getting back in return for it? I don't know what the easy solutions are in order to even get the Bucks back to, what do they win, 48 games this season? Like, I don't know how you get them back to that point.
It's not looking good.
I found myself today being like, would they rather have Chris Middleton's expiring contract rather than Kyle Kuzma's last 2 years on the deal, even though Kuzma's salary is lower? The fact that they have to convince someone to take an extra year as opposed to an expiring at a higher amount where they could just match the contract, give them their 2031 first round pick because, oh, by the way, that's literally the only pick that they could trade unless they want to trade swaps of swaps. I don't know if those swaps of swaps, they swap in as much as they want to swap them. So I don't, like, what are the moves here? You know, like,
I don't
is
think
negative
there's
value
a
in addition to the
move.
contract. Yeah,
It's just mediocrity. Giannis is just gonna have to suffer through mediocrity and be like, I'm Mr. Buck. I'm here in good times and in bad. I think that's what he's going for. Like, I'm here through thick and thin. I think we're gonna turn this around, and next year's just gonna have to be the sacrificial lamb of a season.
And for what it's worth, totally fine. Like, if that's what he wants to do, this is his call. This is his career. How you want to treat your superstardom is up to you. And if it's worth more to him to reward what Milwaukee has put into him, what the Bucks have put into him over the course of his career, like, power to him for doing that.
Have you guys gamed out something that would make sense for Milwaukee, while also, like, you know, putting Giannis in a position to win?
I think Houston can
if you're
come the
Cleveland,
closest.
would you trade Evan Mobley for Giannis?
I think I would.
I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't do that as the Bucks, because if I just have Mobley and nothing else and not my own future, what am I surrounding with Mobley? So it's almost like a slightly worse version of what I have now, except, like, you just don't have anything to feed the main star that you have.
Sure, but like in, let's say, 2 years when your books make way more sense, you'll be in a position to do so. Whereas with Giannis in 2 years, like, he gonna be old. Like, you know what I mean? Evan Mobley will still be squarely on the upswing of his career in 2 years.
Was if 32-year-old Giannis is old, what are we?
Oh, we're cooked.
Oh, okay.
It's good
Washed and laundered. Stick a fork in us.
I think with Mobley, you will get to, like, 2 years from now where you have open cap space to do something with it. Realize you're in Milwaukee. You can't bring anybody there because it's not like Mobley's out there partying in Calabasas right now, just like recruiting guys for 4 years down the road. And so you will have to trade him in 3 years from that because he will be looking to hit free agency down the road. So, like, to me, that.
So what should the Bucks want in return for Giannis in a trade, if not a really all-star player who's cost controlled? Like, what should they want?
I would look at more of the Houston, San Antonio teams that could offer me a lot of different things, with the idea that I expect one of them to pop in a certain way. And so, like, if I have Reed Shepherd, I have a couple other, like this upcoming number 9 pick, I have like 1 or 2 other guys, Tyrese and whomever it might be, Jabari Smith, then, like, oh, maybe I see something in them and I could turn them into something. And at the very least, I have multiple bites of the apple. So you're basically saying, I didn't have the past 4 drafts, but I have this team's past 4 drafts. And so I could hopefully bring a team out of that, because, again, like, what are the things that are going to be additive to the team outside of this trade? It's like, they're not getting picks back in because they don't have players to trade. They don't have their own picks, so they can't draft their way to other players. So it's just like you're stuck in this situation for 2 years until you can get rid of Dame. So I think Houston makes sense.
I think Houston does make sense as a Giannis destination and as a Kevin Durant destination, for that matter. Like, if we wanted to get down to it, but also, apparently, there's no destination to be had for Giannis. So he's going to be hanging out in Milwaukee until he decides otherwise.
I'll say this: Giannis, Jabari Smith, Amen Thompson is fucking sick. And so I know Giannis wants to stay and toil and just be the guy in Milwaukee, but, like, all of us are rooting for you to go to Houston because I want to watch that. So we'll see. All right.
We'll see.
Wrap it there. I think we'll be back Friday.
Houston was in the playoffs this year. That seems like years ago that I was watching that team play basketball. Doesn't that seem like such a long time ago?
I just like this segment. Waz remembers the Houston Rockets. Just remembers that they exist, that they're out there.
Should we just do our own one shining moment at the end of the finals where we just list off things that happened over the past 2 months of our lives that we just completely forgot? Yeah.
We should
Alperen
100% do that.
Şengün had a pretty good game once. He also had several pretty bad games too. All right. We'll be back, I believe, Friday. No Waz. We'll miss you, buddy.
Yeah. Yes, I'm going to be in Guatemala. One of my best friends is getting married on Saturday. So, yeah, I'm going to be in Guatemala, in Antigua wedding. Yep.
Do you want to shout out your friend now or later?
Sydney Snow, one of the greats ever. So, shouts to her.
We need to stop asking you where you're going because I want us to guess because there's no way any of us are going to be. Because when we say like, we're going to Tulum, you're like, no, I'm going to Washington, D.C. You know, I'm going to Delaware.
Believe me, when I got this wedding invitation from 2 Black Americans from Florida and D.C. respectively, I'm like, yeah, it's probably going to be in Florida in the Keys or some shit. Probably, you know, like these people are pretty successful. It's probably going to be some sexy locale or whatever. When I seen that shit say Antigua, Guatemala, I was like, what the hell? But
I haven't seen that one.
The things we do.
Well, we'll miss you, but we'll have a fill-in for you on Friday for Game 4, another exciting edition of Group Chat, and another NBA Finals game. So we will talk to you then. Thank you to Isaiah Blakely. Thank you to Ben Cruz. Talk to you next time.